All right, we'll go ahead and call the order. I say good evening. I'd like to call the meeting to order at 6:30 p.m. Due to the virtual format of today's meeting, I'd like to start by providing some guidelines. We have participants attending by computer and others who may be attending by phone. For all meeting attendees, please speak clearly and pause frequently. State your name each time before speaking. Mute your microphone when not speaking, and if you have technical difficulties, try joining the meeting using a different device such as a smartphone or tablet, or use the call-in information on the meeting invite to call into the meeting. At tonight's meeting, we will be discussing some of the proposed 2021 comprehensive plan amendments followed by the tracking of public comments and the Title 18 update. And we'll move to attendance. Kristen, will you please call the roll?
Yes, I should note that Commissioners Zaragoza and Voice have excused absences this evening. And then Commissioner Milligan, you're on mute. I see you. I know you're here. Okay, Commissioner Monahan?
Here.
Commissioner Lewis?
Here.
Commissioner Vader?
Here.
And Chair Fall?
Here.
Right. Commissioner Milligan, can you try it again?
Can you hear me?
Yes, there we go. Thank you.
This little thing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, now we'll move to the approval of the meeting minutes from June 24th. Are there any corrections to the June 24th meeting minutes? Nina?
I have a correction. On page 9 of the packet, so it's the minutes page, I don't know, where we go 1, 2, 3 on the different objectives. Top of the page is, oh God, I'm working without a mouse here. It's where it says, what our comments about sections 1, 2, 3. Do you know where I am? Page 0000. Why does it say that at the top? Top of the page is Voice said he appreciates Monahan's point. That's at the top of the page. Milligan is halfway down. And near the end of the paragraph that says Milligan said she 1 and 2 agrees. Halfway down it says she we should try to enhance connectivity. I made a point of saying that was for non-motorized vehicles. And so I want somehow in that paragraph to emphasize connectivity between neighborhoods with non-motorized vehicle connections. That's it.
Okay. Any other corrections that would like to be noted? And Kristen, you got that Nina's updates? Okay. With that, the meeting minutes are approved. Now we'll move on to regular business. So we're going to go ahead and talk about the proposed 2021 comprehensive plan amendments, land use tables, and the Milano redesignation and rezone request. And tonight, Kristen will go ahead and our senior planner will present the 2021 comprehensive plan and zoning map amendments regarding several land use element tables and the Milano redesignation rezone request. This is for discussion only. No recommendation will be made tonight. And Kristen, go ahead, and the floor is yours.
All right, you all can see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And this is Kristen Leeson, Senior Planner. And again, I can't, as a presenter, I can't see comments and questions. So if Chair Fall, if you could let me know if those come, I would appreciate it.
I'd be happy to.
Thank you. So yes, tonight we're talking about a few of the proposed 2021 comprehensive plan and zoning map amendments. And we are going to review, discuss, and ask questions. And there are no recommendations tonight, but I need to know for the September and October public hearings, what information that I still need to provide you all in order for you to be able to make recommendations. So tonight we're talking about several of the land use element tables and the request from Milano for a redesignation and rezone of a property. So first, that go there. No, sorry, something in the way. First, we're talking about table L2, units toward 2031 state adopted housing target. And in 2021, we added 315 new housing units. That means that they were finalized or completed and signed off on. This also means then that we exceeded our 2031 housing target and are now at 104%. I should note that we get new housing targets at the end of this year, which will run from 2019 through 2044. Are there any questions on that one? Okay. Next is L3, jobs toward 2031 state adopted jobs targets. Now, this one we kind of went the opposite direction, but it's kind of understandable. So in 2020, the year of COVID, we lost a little over 3,000 jobs, which took us down from being at about 53% to being at almost 80 or 38% of our target. So we dropped quite a bit, which means we would still need almost 12,500 jobs to hit our target. But again, we are getting new targets at the end of Q4, which so essentially we start over. And capacity. This tells us how much redevelopable and vacant land that we have in the city that can still be developed. And this is a very long process. And we haven't done this probably since 2002. And we have done annexations since then, and land has been rezoned and lots of changes. So vacant is vacant. It's anything with an improvement of $10,000 or less on it. Or it's vacant. Redevelopable, we take out things like condominiums, housing that has been built since say 2010. You take out all community property, you take out religious facilities, government facilities, all those things come out to determine this. So our capacity right now, we have 551 essentially residential acres, 197 commercial acres, and the capacity for 11,743 housing units and 15,561 jobs. Is there any question on this one? Are there any questions or comments?
I have a question.
Yes.
Commissioner Milligan here. Planner Leeson, the number for jobs net capacity, is that below our target? And has it always been below our target since we created the central Issaquah plan? I can't remember.
So it's changed. As you can see, our target way back when was 26,711, and that was in 2014. We at the time had options for Microsoft that we had anticipated. So anyway, it is enough for our proposed new targets, and it is enough to accommodate what we would still need to meet for the 2031 targets. I think I was going in a direction originally that you didn't ask me. So that's the answer, is that yes, we have enough to meet our targets. Okay.
Kristen?
Yes.
I also have a question here. So looking at the housing, the blue box, very low density. Looks like we have net housing capacity for 399. I assume very low density means single family homes. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So didn't we have about 34 or 35 buildable lots last year? And now we have 399. So.
Well, that was lots. That wasn't units. And I know what you're talking about. It was a few years ago when we looked at, so we were trying to estimate how many units we could still put in.
The 399 seems like a big bump from previous discussions.
And I'd have to look back and see what that number was. So that was a few years ago.
Okay. My question is, if we were only at around 35-ish for single family homes and we're now at 399, where are those lots?
A lot of it's redevelopable land. So there is some up there, some up in Squawk. It's scattered all around. You still have things up above Overdale Park that could be developed. You know, you have some plats that may have been approved, but nothing's been built yet, so that doesn't count.
Okay.
Yeah.
So are we talking about lot splits that have happened?
No, again, I'd have to look, and I can't remember if we covered the entire city or if we were just looking at Squawk Mountain and Sycamore at that time.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just don't know where we came up with 399. That's a huge bump for, if you can imagine, a 400 homes. That's a lot of homes for very low density. I mean, yeah, it just seems like it doesn't smell right. I mean, it just something doesn't jive, I guess.
Okay. Well, and I'll go back and I'll look at it, but it may be comparing apples to oranges too. You know, there were different factors considered in this than, you know, what we did a few years ago just in-house. I'll take a look and let you know.
Okay. Thank you. That's it. No more questions.
No more? Okay. All right. The last table for the land use element is the population and household projections. So I think this is really small and I apologize. But I think that the numbers to really look at here are the current population and households. So we submit permits to the Office of Financial Management, or we submit permits to the Puget Sound Regional Council every year to say how many housing units have been finalized and issued in that year. And they go through their paperwork and they come back with a number for us. And they said that we now have 17,739 housing units and it's a population of 39,840. Some changes that they made this year, the occupancy rate went up from 0.95% to 0.96%, which over time makes a difference, as does the persons per household, which went from 2.32 persons per, or 2.31 persons per household to 2.32 persons per household, which again, over time will make a difference. I think there's a question. I saw something pop up.
Nyla has a question.
Okay.
Commissioner Milligan here. I was just putting that in the queue for finishing your presentation on this slide. Are you done, Kristen?
I am done.
Okay. My question for you is, I was wondering why Lakeside units are counted in the current columns, but the Rowley units are only counted in future columns. Both of them are under development agreements. I didn't understand the discrepancy there.
Well, Lakeside actually has housing units there, and the Central Issaquah and the urban core and Rowley, there are no housing units.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll look at it again.
Okay. Yeah, it's the urban core. It's not Central Issaquah. It's the urban core that doesn't have any housing units right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And Kristen, we have a question from Commissioner Lewis.
Okay.
Thank you, Commissioner Joy Lewis. My question is about the projections for future population. I was curious why in 2030 to 2040 we see an increase that's different from what we're projecting right now from 30. What is it that we're estimating some sort of growth rate that doesn't stay steady?
Are you talking about the total number or a number for a certain area?
Yeah, so right now we're roughly estimating that we're going to add around 5,000 people by 2030, but then that bumps up to about 8,000 people for 2040. And so I'm curious why that doesn't remain steady, what the reason is for the projected population increase in the years 2030 to 2040.
A lot of that's because there are some development agreements that that are not supposed to be done until around 2040. And so we just, what we sort of anticipated what will be built at what time. And by that time, it should be completely built out.
Okay. I think that it's hard when you first sent out these housing numbers to us a couple months ago, right? We had a dialogue back and forth, and to be blunt about it, it's hard to see us hit our housing target so forcefully, so well as compared to our jobs numbers, right? Even taking out the pandemic, it being around 53%, they're not on pace with each other. And as we negotiate our next round of housing projections and looking what sister cities in our region came in at their last projections, right? It's hard to think that a pat on the back and a gold star is all we're going to get, right? There's something about looking at these numbers and seeing that while we obviously can't affect where people want to live, and we're happy to be a community that is so desirable, how is it that we're able to put into perspective how easily we hit this target and concerns about keeping up with community services, right? It definitely gave me pause when we first looked at it a couple months ago and you sent it around. And I think that it's certainly worth noting that there's I don't have a problem right now, but I have a feeling that there are problems coming, if that makes sense, right? When we so easily are hitting our housing numbers, how I'm excited to be able to get rate surveys on how we're keeping up with fire and rescue, water, police, schools, right? It starts to really bring home that if we're hitting this so easily, we need to be anticipating those growth in other areas, if that makes sense.
No, it does. So this is a conversation that council wants to have. When we talked about the targets with them, they wanted to come back and have a discussion about growth and meeting the infrastructure needs for all of that growth. And no matter what our targets right now, our proposed targets are the lowest out there. They're, I think, still at 3,500, and jobs are very low as well, and much lower than they were last time. And no matter what our target is, though, we have to prepare for the infrastructure, because people are going to come. If our target was 1,000, more than 1,000 people are going to come here. We just need to be able to manage it. You're right. The infrastructure, plan for it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Yes, one question from Commissioner Milligan.
Hi, Commissioner Milligan here. It's a comment, and I just wanted to get back to Planner Lease, and I understand now what I had missed in the Lakeside numbers. I keep forgetting that the apartments on the northeast side of Highlands Drive are a part of the Lakeside Development Agreement, and I had forgotten that because they're just so out of sync with the rest of it. So thank you for pointing me that way. Thanks.
You're welcome. Okay. Ready to move on?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. So next we're going to talk about the Milano redesignation and rezone request. So what you're looking at is the property. This is Newport Way right here, and there's a single family house and a detached garage behind it. And here's an aerial review of where it's located. Here's the site, the house, the garage, and Newport Way right here. So the request is, it's a 0.81 acre parcel, and the request is to change the land use designation from low density residential to multifamily residential, and to change the zoning from single family suburban to multifamily medium. So here's what's adjacent to it. You've got a single family house here. You have single family zoning here with spyglass townhomes or condominiums next to on that property. Single family suburban over here with open space, and then single family homes back in here. These two properties are tracts, open space tracts owned by this HOA. Multifamily medium up here. These are the Bentley House condominiums. And to the east, you have Revel, which was just constructed. It's village residential. You have Revel, and then Anthology in here, and Riva as well. You also have, and you'll see it in a minute, a creek coming through this property as well. So critical areas, approximately 75% of this site is encumbered by critical areas. And the dark purple that you see here are the 40% steep slopes. They're 40% or 40% grade or steeper. And then they have 50% buffers that are required with those. There's also Schneider Creek that runs adjacent to it, and it has a 100-foot buffer that bumps into this property as well. everything that you see in white becomes the developable property. So for the design standards, single families, this is a comparison between the two. The densities, you go from 4.5 to 14.5. Minimum lot size from 9,600 to 2,500. Front setback 20 to 10 feet. Side setbacks are about the same. Rear setback actually goes from 10 to 20 feet. And then impervious goes up to 50%. And the base building height is 40 feet and 30 feet for single family, which that's as high as it can go. But then the multifamily medium can go up to 50 feet with conditions. And when you look at rezones, you can't just look. I know that with this, the property owner is proposing 11 townhomes for rental townhomes to go on the site, but you can't just look at what's proposed. I mean, for one, an application has not been submitted. You need to look at everything that can go on that property. So these are very similar, what can go on these, except that you get to multifamily structures, which are not allowed in single family suburban. And then you get down here, you've got a neighborhood scale grocery store would be allowed, neighborhood and residential scale office, professional and financial uses, daycare centers, and professional grooming services would be allowed. Access, when we took this to the council on the docket, access was a big concern for them. As it should be. So this is Newport Way right here. And currently there is an easement that goes across the Spyglass condominium property. And the property owner was correct in a letter that was sent. I said it was 10 feet. That was our understanding, but I believe that it's closer to 25 feet wide here. But that is the access easement. Our street standard, section Y, says that access would preferably come from a quieter street. So I'm going to call it a quieter street. And so I said that that is something that probably needs to be explored if this were to be approved or if other access is needed. However, this property is owned by the HOA, so it is dependent on a conversation with them. Access this way is potentially possible, but because there's no project has been submitted, it's hard to tell how that would work. Although there has been conversation about right in, right out, but as you know, Newport Way has recently had a new been redesigned, and some changes might need to be made if that were the case. So our recommendation right now is to not recommend approval of the request to change the land use designation to multifamily residential and the zoning to multifamily medium for a few reasons. First of all, there are 9 criteria in IMC 1804-632 D3 that an applicant must meet all of these. And one is number 2, rezone bears a substantial relation to the public health, safety, welfare, or other community benefit. And the proposed rezone does not have any public health, safety, welfare, or community benefits that would come with it. The rezone was warranted because of changed circumstances. There have not been any changed circumstances to this property that would constitute a rezone. And the rezone request is consistent with the comprehensive plan or is in the concurrent process of comprehensive plan redesignation. So yes, there is a concurrent request for a redesignation to multifamily medium to match the zoning change. But there are also policies existing in the comprehensive plan that this does not conform to. One is Land Use Policy C2, which says focus future growth in areas with no or minimal environmentally critical areas. And with this property being encumbered with 75% critical areas, it doesn't make sense. And then Land Use Goal K says focus and promote office housing and retail development in the urban core regional growth center. There is plenty, as we just talked about, plenty of capacity in the urban core to accommodate housing, and we don't need additional density outside of the urban core. So that is, those are the amendments. Are there any questions? I'll finish real quick and we can go on. Timeline is same as it was last time. We're going to continue looking at these through August and in September. And then in September and October, we're going to hold a public hearing and there will be a recommendation. November 9th, it goes to a council study session. And on December 6th, the council is expected to take action. The next time you will see a topic, it will be the final topic for comprehensive plan amendments is August 12th, when we will talk about climate change policies. That is all I have. If you have any questions, happy to chat.
Kristen, I do have a question. I'm waiting for
Yes.
other commissioners here. Okay. I don't see any questions, so I do have a question.
Mhm.
The property that's across the street, is there any discussion about redeveloping that property?
Yes, actually, the property owner who owns this property owns the property across the street.
Okay. And that's why
And
they want to turn this into a parking lot, because they want to develop that.
right, he's proposing 100-unit complex. I don't know if it's apartments or condominiums. And yes, the proposal, it hasn't been approved yet, but the proposal would be to use this site that we're talking about as construction parking and lay down for construction materials.
Now, if this owner, focusing back on the lot that we're topic tonight, if this owner was to purchase from the HOA the triangle section that's missing, basically where their easement is, and got that access to the road, would the city change its position from not recommend development to recommend development, provided that the development does not impact the sorry, my dogs are barking. I just lost my chain of thought. The encumbered areas.
So no, not at this time, because in order to be approved, the applicant has to meet all 9 of the criteria that are listed in the code. And that even with that access, that doesn't happen.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Looks like we have a question from Commissioner Milligan. Oh, sorry. I need to back up. We have a question question from Commissioner Lewis first.
Thank you, Chair Fall, Commissioner Joy Lewis. So if I'm understanding the numbers correct, right now the proposal for the 11 townhomes is on 25% of the property, as 75% is considered unbuildable. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah.
And right now that's him building up to the maximum amount of buildable space with the required mandatory buffers.
Yes. Yeah. Keep in mind, this is something that city hasn't had a chance to review because no project has been submitted.
Okay. Thank you. And then the parking component was something that I was a little confused about, especially when the mentioning of like the lay down for materials. Is there any type of review that ends up happening for these protected and critical areas when going through that request for the site plan? And then is that something that goes through council, or is that something that goes to administration?
There is a review that happens. I talked to the planner on that project today, and the review hasn't happened yet, but it's to protect critical areas. That's what it's for. It does not go to city council.
Okay, so it's just an administration review. Okay. So that's kind of separate, right? It's just kind of ancillary knowledge for us. It's not really anything. Has there been any response from the HOA right now on the proposal?
Not from the HOA itself, but I have heard from a resident who lives in the neighborhood.
Okay.
At least one that I am aware of. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay. And thank you very much, Commissioner Lewis. We have a question from Commissioner Milligan.
Thank you, Chair Fall. This is Commissioner Milligan. Planner Leeson, I wanted to ask about cluster housing that's allowed on encumbered properties by critical areas. And I just need a little refresher on that, and whether the zoning density would allow for any more of that anyway, considering it's 4.5 RUs per acre and it's not even an acre.
So it would allow for cluster housing, and like you, I need a little refresher, but you look at what would be allowed on the entire parcel, and you're allowed to bring some of that over into cluster housing and make smaller lots. You still have to have things like open space, and there are some setbacks, in critical areas and stuff, but you can get more housing on a property that way.
Okay. And I have one last question. I don't see any other additional questions from other commissioners. This particular house built in 1902 or 1903, it seems to be a rather unique house and eclectic. If the developer was proposing to redevelop the property, either high density or put another unit, another house on there, would there be any interest? Would the city have any interest in trying to move the house to another lot to save that particular house? Maybe like a relocation into Old Town.
So this kind of thing has come up before, and it's a city council decision. And yeah, so I don't know what their answer would be, but you'd have to find land on which to locate the house, which is expensive unless it gets donated, and then moving the house is expensive. And then you need to figure out how it's going to be used. Is it going to be purchased by a residential, for somebody to live in, or is it going to be commercial? Who's going to own it after that? So short answer, I don't know if they would consider that, but there are a lot of things to be considered if that was something they wanted to do.
Okay, thank you. I see no additional questions.
Okay. I think what I really need to do then is to go back and look at the numbers from a few years ago and see exactly what we looked at and what considerations were made during that. And I'll bring that back to you all next time when we talk about capacity. Is that my homework? Is that all that I have? Okay. All right. Thank you all.
Okay, so it looks like next thing on the agenda is Title 18 update and tracking of public comments. Vinnie Dhaliwal, your Community Planning and Development Director, will be presenting a plan for tracking, responding, and presenting public comments.
Wait,
Vinnie,
I'm sorry.
Oh.
I do have one quick question. Do you want to ask for public comment, or do you want to wait until the end?
Let's open it for public comment in
Okay.
regards to the
Okay.
2021 plan amendments.
Okay. I do know that we have a few people here. If you would like to speak right now, would you please? There are two topics tonight, so some of you said you wanted to speak, and I'm not sure which topic. But if you'd like to speak, would you please raise your electronic hand, or if you can't figure out how to do that, send a note to me in the chat. And I'll give you a minute to do that. I believe, okay. I think Susan Neville just raised her hand. I'm going to make you a panelist. You're now unmuted, Ms. Neville.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Hello, everyone. I'm a longtime resident. My name's Susan Deville of Issaquah, and I do happen to live in the Pine Cone Tierra Highlands development, which is right next to that Milano that you were just discussing. So I believe someone from the development committee wrote in, so there is a letter in your packet, and there's also a letter from me. So I just wanted to make that note before I started in on the title update for public tracking. I wanted to thank the administration for putting this together, and also for all the times they've spent trying to include the public in this whole process. And I did send in a letter regarding the discussion, but I really wanted to reiterate a few points to consider before the final approval is done tonight. And one of them is to confirm that the public comment notes will be traveling or included in all the information being passed through the channels, such as when it goes to city council work sessions and all other committees. And then my second concern was, can the public questions on a particular section be answered before the document moves to the next review phase? And for example, I used, like on the section for natural environment labeled N1, before this document goes to council study work session, will the response note be more specifically answered? I realize this was just put together in a short time, and the majority of the responses so far are listed as under review. But, and another example was the Master Builders Association had a answer called incorporated response. And that's because they had sent in some ordinances and local housing links. So I was wondering if during your discussion, if you would talk about the differences between these two responses and maybe what other comment or responses we will be seeing as we move along. And those were the two only items I was not really clear on. And again, thank you for all your efforts so far for everybody that they put into this. Thank you.
I do have one other who would like to speak. It's Hossein Coram, who is the property owner for Milano, and I am going to make you a presenter now. Does it make you a panelist? All right, you are unmuted, and you can turn on your camera too if you like.
Oh, okay. How do I do that? So, okay. Oh, there we go. Oh, there we go. Thank you. Thank you for having me, commissioners. I thought I would never get this right, but I did just the last minute. So God must have intervened. And thank you for Kristen's, nice directions. Anyhow, my name is Hossein Coram. I send this thing on an email to the commissioners and the city council. I mistakenly identified a part of the city council, so my apologies. I will resend it tomorrow to the commissioners. I'm a small builder. I'm bored for Boeing. I work for the military, and then I started my own construction company development. And this rezone request is, and again, this is something that does not have to be done. I want to bring this idea up here that I think is a great idea to develop some middle income housing in Issaquah. City of Issaquah is concentrating their development in the downtown core area or the central Issaquah area, which is high density. It's cost prohibitive to have medium income houses like townhomes or smaller homes in that area. So this may be a perfect solution only if the city wants. Well, what are the benefits of a development is right now, anybody from the street could walk to that stream and basically interfere with environment, the fish habitat. Once it's developed, we basically close up that area. We're proposing to do the street frontage, which is something which doesn't exist right now. I almost hit a biker when I was driving there one day. So there are benefits that goes with that. The overall size of the building is a little bit bigger from a single family. The footprint doesn't vary a whole lot. It's just more units. But what it does, I think it provides a housing opportunity for middle income people. What happened in city of Issaquah, if you look at the pamphlet or the document that I sent you, 25.1% the housing cost increase in the past 12 months. 25.1%. The rental market is the most expensive in city of Issaquah in all the municipalities that was in that study. So if we continue doing things of the past, then what's going to happen to the younger people? What's going to happen to my kids? I got kids at 22 and 24. They want to buy a house. I think buying a house is going to be a dream for these people. So what I'm saying is just let's look at this with an open mind. Is there any way we can protect the community? Is there any way we can address the neighbors, concerns? If there's any way that we can protect the environment by closing it off right now, it's open. And if there's any way we can serve the younger families, the people And the demographics have changed. There are a lot more immigrants right now. People like me moving into Issaquah because of the job market. These people have in-laws living with them. They can't fit in a 2-bedroom apartment or 1-bedroom apartment in central Issaquah. I'm building one across the street. Is zoned for that, 101 units. You can't build middle-income housing. It's too expensive. It would not work. So you just have to be creative. I'm doing a job in City of Redmond, and City of Redmond is actually considering out the box to do some spot rezones with the consent of the neighbors and the community and the environment, protecting that to along the artery. So just think out the box, just an idea. If I get a no, I'll break my heart a little bit, but I'll live over it. But I think the community is going to be the winning thing. That's what we need to consider the days. And are we serving the public at 21.1% price increase in 1 year? Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak? One more minute. No, I don't see any. Oh, we go. Geraldine Carey would like to speak. So Geraldine, I'm going to make you a panelist and unmute you. You're unmuted. And if you'd like to turn on your camera, you can do that as well.
I'll pass on the camera. Thank you. I'm a longtime resident on Newport Way, SR 900. I've been here 43 years, and I've seen a lot of change to Newport Way. I had a long, in my mind, I had a long comment on the Planning Policy Commission if they were in favor of rezoning this property as multifamily. But I see, for the most part, you are saying this property cannot be rezoned because it does not meet at least 9 or 10 of the conditions. And what changes that in those 9 conditions that you would, or somebody in the city council would recommend that this property be rezoned multifamily? I'm curious. I'm glad to be in on the groundwork of this property being rezoned, because a lot of times things happen, and then 5 years, 6 years out, we see things going on, and the city says it happened way back when. So I'm glad that the city is allowing residents to have input on what is happening along Newport Way, which I feel is being over planned and will be so congested with all the development that I'm not in favor of seeing this property rezoned. But I applaud your efforts and your considerations and hope that the city officials see this property to remain single family. So I thank you.
Thank you. Those were all of the attendees. There's no one else to speak.
Okay, thank you, Kristen. We'll go ahead and close public comment at 7:15 for the proposed 2021 comprehensive plan amendments and land use tables in Milano redesignation rezone request. We'll open public comment again after the discussions for Title 18 update and tracking of public comments. Minnie, go ahead. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, Commissioners. So what we wanted to share with you was just and get your input on what our thoughts are of tracking public comments, because Title 18 update is going to be a 1.5 year long process. We want to make sure that we, as we start rolling into some of the topics, that we are tracking them, and there is a feedback loop with the community comments that are coming in. So our what we included in the packet was to categorize those comments by the 6 topic areas that we're going to be talking to you about. So we've shared with you the schedule, broken it up into 6 main groups. Each group has multiple topics, but we're thinking we would take the public comments that come in, we divide them into those 6 groups, we keep track of them, and then when we bring in the first draft of the code amendments for a public hearing on each of those 6 groups, that we would have a more comprehensive last column filled in. So, for instance, if it was natural environment, we received some comments, we would review them, come up with a staff's recommendation of how to include them in the first draft. And then when you hold the public hearing in the first draft, we would have, this was incorporated in this section, or this was noted, but no changes were made to the code language for these reasons. So some kind of a complete response would be included when we have the public hearing on each of those 6 groups. And in the meantime, we'll continue to maintain this matrix of all the comments that are coming in. The other part, I think, that we've heard from the public comments tonight and previously is that if there are questions asked during the public comments, then staff will try and answer those questions during their presentation for that each topic. So if there's an agenda item for your consideration and comments come in, some of them are questions, we will try to incorporate the answers to those questions in our presentation so that everyone has the same information or an answer to that question, including the public and all the commissioners. So that's our thought process on this. We just wanted to see if you had additional ideas you want us to incorporate, or if this will work. So that's all. We were looking for some feedback on that.
I will open it to commissioner questions. Okay.
Commissioner Milligan has a comment.
Commissioner Milligan, go ahead. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair Fall. This is Commissioner Milligan, and thank you, Director Dhaliwal. I just wanted to comment how much I appreciate the design and thought that's gone into the records, and there was a particular detail that I liked, so I wanted to point it out as a reinforcement, and that was that sometimes the public comment comes in by way of an email or even in person, and it has many different topics. And in the example that you showed in our packet, you made an effort to split out those topics so that they could be addressed, even though they were in the same communication. So I just want to say I want to appreciate that organization. I think it's very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Milligan. And Commissioner Lewis has a question.
Thank you, Commissioner Joy Lewis. I really appreciate that there's a way for interested parties to be able to confirm that comments have been received. You know, it's typical when council gets something that Councilmember Hunt, will reply and say we received it. So I love having this framework for people to kind of know that their thoughts haven't just gone into the ether. But I do really want to sharpen in on this as a tool for being able to facilitate dialogue. When we ask questions and we get answers, it often just brings more questions. And right now, this response notes tool that's been created isn't really doing that, right? So having everything be kind of a pending response, I see as being problematic. Maybe there's something where if a respondent is asking a question about something that aligns to a timeline, there can be like an ETA, like expect a response on this when we, in July, or however, a response to when staff is going to be creating those drafts and things like that, so people kind of know when to anticipate it. I'm not sure if that's a good response to my concern, but I think what you had mentioned was basically answers were going to be in the presentation, and I initially didn't like that idea, because I don't think it facilitates us being able to really have as many eyes and thoughts and to really make our best effort at this. And so I'm hoping that we can continue the work on these response notes in a way that allows people to be able to look up and see, oh, I had that question too. What was it that staff said, right? In some way being able to communicate, we're still working on this, but right now this is what we're thinking. Or, you know what, we thank you for your response, and we'll think we're going to have a response for you in around the October timeframe, or you know what I mean? So in some way to be able to communicate. And then when that time comes, to say this is what our response is, what the administrative response is, and for people to be able to see that, right? Not just the person who asked the question. So in the same way that you're including people's emails, or we're able to get a much more detailed response then as well in the response notes of saying this is what it is, to be able to update people before it's too late, right? Before we've looked at the draft and passed our opinions along to council, right? How do we use this as a tool that people are able to say, oh, well, that kind of led me to think about this or that. And so I would encourage this to kind of think about the next steps, right? I think this is a great first way of kind of corralling all of these comments and chatter that we really appreciate having so early on. And so, yeah, I don't know that I have great answers, but I have a couple suggestions, but I do want to kind of be continue to figure out how do we use this as a tool for community members, not only to feel heard, but to continue that dialogue, right? To be able to have, when our people are having a direct message to staff, that this then means that we're able to keep, use this pool of interested parties to be able to then invite them for direct events, for instance, right? Like I love that in the tool of being able to say, like, how did we receive this response, right? We haven't had any events yet, so obviously that column was blank, but being able to see kind of how are we interacting and how are we continuing to have really valid input that's coming in. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Lewis. And we have a question from Commissioner Bader.
Yeah, hi, Sarah Bader here. I also like the table. I had a couple of kind of comments / quasi questions about it, and about specifically the how do community members kind of feel heard and acknowledged as part of this. And I think the table goes a long way. My first question is, or comment, I guess, is that there's already a lot here, and we're only a couple of weeks into this. And so as we look a year out, how do we sort or filter, or combine, themes or everything that's being emergent here, so that we're continuing to kind of remember what's has been talked about as this list grows and grows and grows. So that's one comment. And then the other is, and I think you touched on this in your comments, was around, I used to be, this is some random background, but I used to be a planner in a different country way back in the day, and we used to have to prepare reports for, we call them committees there. And as part of those reports, we had to summarize kind of public comments that were sent in. And so I wonder if there's an opportunity. I think you mentioned that this might be part of the report. And my couple of weeks being part of this commission, I've noticed that the comments come in after the agendas are posted and the packets are posted. So that might be kind of a moot point anyway, but maybe in your presentations or in supplemental materials or whatever. But I think acknowledging them kind of formally, relevant comments to the topic at hand, I think would go a long way as well to making people feel heard, and also making sure that we're kind of considering their comments appropriately as well as we discuss this. And then the final thing, which might not be appropriate for this conversation, but is just an observation kind of generally as I look at just the names. There's a lot of comments, but not very many names, which is wonderful that we have, a handful of really, really engaged residents, but to the vein of kind of like nothing about me without me in terms of community engagement and getting as much feedback as we can, given that, we just learned that there's 39,000 something odd residents in the city of Issaquah. How are we communicating the opportunities to provide feedback into this process? And so, and I don't know if that's for now or just for, food for thought for later, but I'm interested in how to spread the word that this process is happening, so we can hear kind of from diverse voices as well.
And thank you very much, Commissioner Bader. Kristen, I am not seeing any additional comments or questions.
I'm not either.
Commissioner Monahan, would you like to have a question? Okay. All right. Seeing none, I guess we'll go ahead and move on to public comments. We want to open up to public comment.
I will see if there's anyone else that would like to speak. Yes, she still wants to speak. Let me, Geraldine Carey. Geraldine, would you like to speak on this topic as well?
Oh, wait a minute. What are they talking about?
I don't think so. Ms. Carey, would you like to speak on the Title 18 topic as well?
Oh, no.
Oh, your hand was still up, so that's why I was asking. Okay.
Oh, no.
Okay, thank you. If anyone else would like to speak, if you could raise your hand or let me know in the chat. I don't see anyone. I do believe that Ms. Neville addressed some issues in her previous comments during the comprehensive plan topic. I also wanted to note that we did receive comments from via email from Mary Lynch and from Teresa Ossel, and the one from Teresa Ossel just came actually after the meeting started, and I forwarded that on to the Planning Policy Commission, and both were opposed to the rezone.
Okay, and those will be added to the meeting minutes. Is that correct, Kristen? Okay.
Yes, they will.
All right. So, seeing that we do not have any additional public comments or questions, I'm going to go ahead and close public comments at 7:29. That concludes our business for tonight, and then we're going to move into reports and city council updates. Kristen?
I do not have any reports. Minnie, do you have any reports from City Council?
Sure. I can talk about sign code update. So you all finalized your recommendation, gave it to City Council. We had a study session with them, and they sent it back to Title 18 Ad Hoc Committee, and we've been working with them to make the code a little bit more clearer, less prescriptive, more clear to understand, and succinct, and improve the readability and clarity, and so on and so forth. So we have gotten really good feedback from them, and we've incorporated their input. That item is scheduled for July 27th City Council study session. So after the council study session, then I think one of the questions today at ad hoc committee that came up was to check in with all of you to see if you wanted to have that item come back to you, if you felt strongly about having a second look at sign code. We can certainly send it to you by email. There may be an option for council to consider that they would hold the public hearing themselves on it before adoption. That's one option. Or if you all felt strongly, we want to convey that message to council that you want to see it back again here. Given all the reading that's ahead of you for Title 18 update, we wanted to be sensitive to your time as well. So I told them I'll check in with all of you and see if you had a strong opinion on it one way or the other.
Okay, Commissioner Lewis has a comment.
Thank you. I have a strong opinion that I would love for the public to be able to view this again. If it works best for their calendar that we sit with it, then obviously we're happy to serve. I don't have from where I'm sitting as a commissioner, I don't have a need to look at this again. However, we had fantastic involvement from the community on this process. with meetings with Development Commission. I mean, we had so much good feedback. So I would love to encourage that there is, if the council is willing to hold a public hearing to be able to get updated voices on this new direction and update, I would highly encourage. But as far as where I'm sitting, I don't know that we necessarily need to take another dive into it.
Thank you, Commissioner Lewis. Any other additional comments or questions? There's the sign code. So, Minnie, I think we're good with it.
Great, thank you.
And so that concludes our reports. Now we're going to go ahead and move on to other business and announcements. And Kristen, do you have any comments for the upcoming schedule?
Just wanted to note that I forgot to put the July 15th tour on your schedule. However, you all did receive a meeting notice for it today. I want to make sure we're going to have a quorum. Right now, the only person that I know that won't be there is Commissioner Boyce. If you, and some of you have responded already, but if there's anyone who won't be here, if you could let me know. Summer is, we only have 7 members and summer is busy, so I'm trying to make sure we keep our quorums. Commissioner Lewis?
I had sent you an email a couple weeks ago. I will unfortunately not be available, but I appreciate that you offered to put a GoPro on and record the whole thing for me so that I don't miss anything.
Sure. I thought you were one of them. I couldn't find that email, but I do have your other date. Okay. All right.
Yeah, and I'm happy, if the 15 doesn't work for 1 or 2 of you, I'm happy to do that some other day that works for you during the daytime or in the evening. So you let me know. We can do a redo of this one. Absolutely.
And Kristen, I replied back to your meeting invite as tentative because
That's right.
that's an iffy date. So if we can move, we've got 3 commissioners, 2 commissioners are not going to be there for sure. Myself would be possibly a 3rd one. If we can move the date, I think it might be great if we could move the date. She's smiling.
I know. Well, it's summer and it's busy. And I know we want to get this done early, but I'm going to leave this one up to Minnie.
Yeah, when the notice has gone out too, right?
Yeah.
It's going to get published, and there's a whole protocol about the Open Public Meeting Act and publishing. So we can, we can split it into. We'll do for the ones that can attend, and then the second meeting, if it's less than 3 commissioners, then it's not, then it's not. We don't have to do the notice and all that again. So it'll be just a one-on-one kind of thing. It won't be a violation of the Open Public Meeting Act, and we can cover the 3 commissioners who miss it on another date that works for them.
Excellent. Okay. Is that it for other business and announcements?
That's all I had, yes.
And we've already had public comments, unless we want to open public comments for general, but it's kind of redundant, I think. Kristen, do we have anybody?
We don't. Miss Carrie is left, but she's already said she doesn't want to speak. So I believe we are done with public comment.
Okay, so the next topic is adjournment. Everyone's in agreement for adjournment, then we can adjourn the meeting at 7:35 p.m. That's a record, 1 hour.
That's incredible.
That's efficiency from all of you. Thank you.
All right, thank you all for coming. Appreciate your time and have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you,
Enjoy the
everybody.
evening.